Every great barbecue needs killer side dishes, and today I'm sharing my 5 absolute favourites that steal the show. We're talking crispy, cheesy, buttery, smoky perfection. Whether you're firing up the grill or cooking indoors, these side dishes will have everyone coming back for more. So let's get into it. First up, we're taking potatoes to a whole new level. You've had baked potatoes, but have you ever made Hasselback potatoes? These beauties are sliced thin and then brushed with butter and roasted until golden and crispy and insanely delicious. Ooh, look at us being all fancy like. Plus, I'll show you a little extra trick to get those edges super crispy. Using this to crisp up your potatoes will make them go from great to awesome. Ooh, look at us being all fancy like. Now, if you aren't making potatoes like this, that should be illegal. Let's get into it. Today, we're tackling the Hasselback potato. Now, cooking time for this recipe is 1 hour, or for those of you who like to follow my beer timer, you're looking at a 2-beer cook. Cheers. Help me to help you. If you like this video, like it, share it with your mates, leave me a comment. Also subscribe to the channel and don't forget, hit that bell notification so you get notified every time I upload new content. To make this recipe, we're going to need some potatoes. And when selecting your potatoes, try and get them all roughly the same size. This will just ensure that they all cook evenly and they'll be ready around about the same time. Now, to make this potato into a Hasselback potato, you're going to need a couple of special tools. That being a knife and some wooden spoons. Now grab your potato and slice off the bottom so it sits flat and it won't rock. Now place a wooden spoon on either side of the potato to act as a cutting guide. And then we're just going to make slits from one end to the other, roughly about 3 mil apart. And this is what you should be left with. Slices all the way from one end to the other. Then once all of your potatoes are sliced up and ready to go, grab a baking tray and we're going to cover it with some flexible metal. And then we can just transfer the potatoes onto the tray. By using the wooden spoons as a cutting guide, you won't cut all the way through the potato, keeping it intact. Because if you did cut through the slices, you'd just be making chips and you wouldn't have Hasselback potato. And now that the potatoes are all sliced up, we need to oil them, and this is going to help crisp up the skin and also add some colour while we're cooking the potato. And our choices are huge. You could use an olive oil or an avocado based oil. You could use a spray oil like canola, but for the best result, we're going to use some duck fat. Just melt it down and brush it all over the potatoes, starting on the bottom first, and then flip them all over and brush the top as well, making sure to cover all of the potato with the duck fat. And I use roughly 1 to 2 teaspoons of duck fat per potato. And then just sprinkle over some salt flakes and we are ready to start baking. Today, I'm going to be using my Z Grill's pellet smoker because I want to be baking at temps of 232 degrees Celsius today, and it's as easy as adding some pellets, opening the lid, turning the power on, and turning it to the smoke function. Wait for it to start smoking. Don't forget to put the grill back in place. And once the smoke does start to settle, we can set our target temp of 232 degrees Celsius and close the lid and wait for it to get to temp. I'm using the pellet smoker for this cook because I have to keep opening and closing the lid. And the pellet smoker is going to get to temp a lot quicker, just like an oven. It's that time. The pellet smoker is at temp. So we can just place the tray of potatoes on the bottom rack and close the lid. And set a timer for 20 minutes. I want to make a herb-infused butter to brush onto these potatoes. So into a pot, add 100 grams of salted butter, And over a low heat, we're going to allow that to melt. And once it's melted, add 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, half a teaspoon of dried garlic, and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Allow those flavors to infuse into the butter for about a minute or two and then remove from the heat. You can add whatever flavors you want to the butter, if you don't trust my judgment. The potatoes have been baking away for 20 minutes, so we can get them out of the smoker and brush them with our butter mixture. Now there's no need to flip these over, just give them a good dose of the herb butter and allow it to drip over all the edges. Place the tray back in the smoker and set an alarm for another 20 minutes. The potatoes have been baking for 40 minutes now. Take them out of the smoker again, and using a knife, we're just going to pry open the slits a little bit. And then just brush on more of that butter mixture. And place the potatoes back in the smoker and set an alarm for another 20 minutes. By opening up the slits to allow that butter to get through all of the potato, we are not only helping the skin to get nice and crisp, but the flesh is also going to stay nice and soft and moist. Smart! We are 1 hour into the cook and we're done. We can drag the potatoes out. That skin is super crispy and that herb infused butter has flavoured these potatoes. These are the perfect side dish to any meal. They are perfect to go with steaks, roasts, any barbecue food. In fact, anything where you need a nice side dish. Now the only thing left to do is sprinkle on some fresh chives and then just serve immediately and eat some. Oh. Now let's talk about comfort food. And what's more comforting than mac and cheese? I'll tell you what, smoked mac and cheese. This dish is ultra creamy, packed with cheese and with a smoky bite. Anything with bacon is going to be better. Once you try this, you'll never make mac and cheese the same way again. We may as well be sprinkling crack over this, it's that addictive. Anything with bacon is going to be better. Serving packet mac and cheese should be illegal. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the easiest mac and cheese. So just sit back, grab a drink or two, and let's get into it. Cooking time for this recipe is 1.5 hours. Or for those of you who like to use my beer timer, you're looking at a 3-beer cook. Cheers! And don't forget to subscribe, like, and send hate mail. It all helps. Now, for those of you who have tried mac and cheese and said, I hated it. It's not that packet stuff from the supermarket. Let's get it right. Packet mac and cheese is crap. There's a couple of ingredients that I like to add to my mac and cheese that makes it super addictive. I mean, stand out from the crowd. But first, let's get our barbecue ready. Packet mac and cheese is never gonna make you moist. Look at the science. Smart, but true. Today, I'm gonna be using a 57 centimeter Weber kettle, and I'm gonna be utilizing the snake method because I want to be smoking at temps of 150 degrees Celsius. And how I'll do that is by carefully stacking briquettes into the Weber to form the snake. Taking your time to make sure it is set up as neat as possible, you'll get a more even burn that way. Then I'll add 14 briquettes to a chimney starter. I'll light them up, and once they're fully ashed over, I'll add these to one end of the snake to act like a fuse. And then I'm going to add 1 chunk of pear wood. We don't want to overly smoke this mac and cheese. And I'll just place it close to the lit fuel. I'll carefully put the grill back in place. By placing that wood chunk near the lit fuel, it allows the Weber to get up to temp before it ignites that smoking wood. Next up, we just want to put the lid back on, making sure all the vents are wide open and that lid vent is on the opposite side of our lit fuel. And once the temp gets roughly 50 degrees Celsius off our target temp, we can close down the bowl vent to round about halfway. Now the temp will keep climbing, but it will slow down and it should settle around our target temp. And once we've got that temp stable for 30 minutes, we can put our food in. You're gonna need a pan of considerable size for this recipe. And here's one I prepared earlier. And into it add 700 grams of dried uncooked pasta. And it doesn't really matter as long as it's not lasagna sheets. 500 grams of Colby cheese, 500 grams of shredded cheddar cheese, and 250 grams of cream cheese, 125 grams of salted butter, and 500 grams of diced and pre-cooked bacon, and 2 tablespoons of your favourite barbecue rub. And today I'm using 4 Monkeys Home Base, and 6 cups of milk that tastes like real milk. That's it, we can now add the mac and cheese to the Weber. Just place it on the opposite side to the lit fuel. Put the lid back on, making sure that lid vent stays over our tray of food. That way we are drawing the heat and smoke over it. And leave that alone for 30 minutes or half an hour if you can't wait that long. You can make this recipe in any hooded barbecue, even your oven, just using the same times and temps. Just don't try and make it in a toaster. That doesn't work. After 30 minutes, the cheese should have started to melt. So grab the tray out of the Weber, place the lid back on so we don't get any large heat spikes, and give everything a good mix up, scraping the sides, and don't forget to get into those corners. It is starting to resemble mac and cheese as the pasta is starting to absorb all of that milk. We can now get it back into the Weber, and we're going to leave that alone for another 30 minutes. It's been an hour and it's time to check the mac and cheese. I know you can't smell this, but this does smell amazingly awesome. Now I'm just going to give the top of this another good sprinkle of the rub we used earlier, roughly about another tablespoon. And once again, we're just going to give it a good mix up, making sure to scrape down all the edges and the corners. You don't want anything stuck down and burning. And then once you feel that it is all mixed, just flatten it out with the spoon. Can you hear that? It still sounds moist. Smucked! And now for something added extra. This is going to taste great as it stands, but we're after awesome. We're going to add 2 bags or 100 grams of pork crackle. We just need to make them into small crumbs.
He's a handsome genius.
Now you can do it in a food processor, or you can do it in the bag by just opening the bag a bit to let out the air and just crunching it up. And then we're just going to sprinkle these over the top nice and evenly, and pop this back in the Weber. And pop the lid back on, and we're going to leave that alone for another 30 minutes. Studies have shown that pork crackle is more addictive than crack. The last 30 minutes is going to see that pasta soak up the last of the juices. The pork crackle won't darken, but it will crisp up and it will give a nice crunchy bite. If we are going on smell alone, this is a winner. Now, we've just turned a side dish into a main dish. Next up, we're diving into something crispy, golden, and addictive. That's homemade hash browns. We've all had those sad, soggy hash browns that don't quite hit the mark. But today, I'm showing you my foolproof method to getting them crispy each and every time. Perfectly crispy on the outside, and you won't believe how easy this is. These are crispier than your secret sock. If you aren't making your own hash browns after watching this video, now that should be illegal. Let's get into it. Today, we're gonna make cheesy hash browns. Yeah, you heard me right. Now, cooking time for this recipe is only gonna be 4 minutes. Or for those of you who love to follow my beer timer, you're looking at a 1 beer cook. Cheers. Surely a video on breakfast drinking deserves a thumbs up. To make this recipe, we'll need some potatoes, and any potato will do. Peel them, grate them, add that to cold water to remove excess starch, wring them out, get as much of that liquid out of them as possible now, and then place them in a tea towel and squeeze out the excess water, and then place this into a clean bowl. And you will need 2 cups of shredded potato for this recipe. Instead of a tea towel, you could use a cheesecloth to squeeze out the excess water, if you want to be all fancy. Today, we need a flat top grill, charcoal, cast iron pan, or gas top cooker. It doesn't really matter as long as it's flat. Just turn on the liquid charcoal. Liquefied petroleum, just another flavour profile for our food. Carefully place the grill back in. We're going to allow this hot plate to warm up for 5 minutes because we only need a medium heat. If you're going to share this video, don't forget to tag Weber in it. With the hot plate heated, we can add a good splash of oil. So just place the shredded potato on the grill that's at a medium heat. And we're just going to stir this around. We are purely trying to remove as much moisture as possible. Now after 5 minutes of stirring the potato on the grill and flipping it, we can take it off the heat. We're going to pop it back in the bowl and let it cool down for 5 minutes. Oh, and turn off the barbecue because we won't be needing that for a while. For those that don't know, medium is middle. So not too hot, not too cold. Look, I know it can get a bit complicated. It's okay. It's science. The shredded potato is ready to use, so we can add some seasoning to it. Add to the 2 cups of shredded potato, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/4 cup of shredded tasty cheese, a tablespoon of plain flour, and a tablespoon of corn flour. And that is a secret to the crispiness that we're going to get off our hash browns. Now we just need to mix up all of the ingredients to combine them thoroughly. And you can either raw dog it with your hands or, like me, use a bit of protection. Did you know there's a link in the comments to help support this channel? Now you do. Now we can start forming the hash browns. Now just grab a small ball of the mixture and we're just going to press it into a shape that you want. I try not to make mine any thicker than 10 millimeters. Or while cooking, the outside will become really crispy, but the inside will stay soggy. Some might even say moist smut. Now the great thing about these is you can make a big batch and you can freeze them. Just place them into a container lined with some baking paper. And also place a layer of baking paper between the layers of hash browns, and that way they won't stick together when freezing. But you will have hash browns on hand anytime you want them. In America, they're laying claim to inventing hash browns, and no one really cares. In Australia, all we invented was Wi-Fi, cochlear implants, ultrasound scanners, electric drill, Google Maps, even spray on skin for burn victims. But woohoo, look at us, we invented frying shredded potato. We need the grill again. Do you remember how to heat it up? Good. Once it's warmed up to a medium heat, we need to oil it up like a Las Vegas bachelor's party.
Egg me in, I am oiled up and ready to go.
And placing your newly invented cheesy hash browns on the grill. We are going to allow these to crisp up and become all golden before flipping them. Now that should take around 2 minutes, but it really depends on how hot your grill is and how hot your oil is. And when it is time to flip away from you to avoid any of the oil splashing on you. Now once they're all cooked and golden and crispy, remove them from the heat and we're going to lay them on some unused paper towel to drain off the excess oil. Now I find using unused paper towel more sanitary, but what would I know? I'm just a guy wearing glasses and holding a clipboard. Perfectly crispy on the outside and still moist on the inside. Smart. Now what's a barbecue feast without cornbread? This recipe is buttery, soft, with just the right amount of sweetness. Whether you pair this with barbecue, chili, or eat it on its own, this cornbread is a game changer. And if it comes out clean, you have mastered cornbread 101. And trust me, once you make it from scratch, you'll never go back to store-bought. Light and fluffy. What more do you want in your cornbread? I'm Schuey, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this cornbread. This recipe is super quick, easy to make, and is going to be the perfect side dish for your next barbecue. So just sit back, grab a drink or two, and let's get into it. To make cornbread, you may need to buy a few ingredients that you just don't have lying around. That being buttermilk, polenta, and bicarb soda. I'm sure most households will have all the other ingredients in them. I saw that you pre-liked this video. Virtual beers coming your way. Cheers. Today I'm going to be using a 57cm Weber kettle, and I'm going to be pairing it up with a charcoal basket. Why? Because I want to be cooking at temperatures of 180 degrees Celsius today. And how I'll do that is by filling a charcoal basket up with unlit briquette, and I'll add that into a chimney. I'll also add a good handful of briquettes on top and light that up. And once they're all ashed over, I'll place the charcoal basket to one side of the charcoal grate, and I'll tip the fuel in. I'll put the grill back in place. I'll put the lid back on, making sure all the vents are wide open and that the lid vent is on the opposite side of our lit fuel. That way the heat is drawn over our food. And I'm going to give that 10 minutes to warm up. By adding that extra handful of fuel, we'll be able to reach our target temp of 180 degrees Celsius. Because if we just put in that one charcoal basket, we'd be cooking at temps of 150 to 170 degrees Celsius. It's time to start baking, and as usual, I pre-measured all of my ingredients out before I started. So grabbing a large bowl, we can start throwing in our ingredients. We'll need some polenta, some flour, some bicarb soda, some salt, some brown sugar, some melted butter, some buttermilk, 2 large eggs, just the insides, we won't be needing the shells for this recipe, and some honey. Now just stir that up until you have a nice smooth mixture, and then we're going to grab some cheese and we're just going to stir this in gently, or fold it in, as they say in baking terms. Now just grease up a pan with oil, butter, or the tears of those sitting at home wishing I was cooking some meat today. And now just add the mixture to the pan and we'll be ready for some heat. Trust me, although not meat, you're going to love this recipe. Now, since we pre-warmed the Weber up, that cornbread can go straight in. Just placing it to the opposite side of the lit fuel, and if you want, you can add some smoking wood. I think some cherry wood will be nice for today's cook. Just put the lid back on, again making sure that lid vent is over our food, and set a timer for 30 minutes. While I have you here, have you seen this? Now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel, and while you're there, hit that bell button. That bell button is going to allow you to be notified every time I give you a reason to drink. Today I'm cooking at temps of 180 degrees Celsius, and all up our cook's going to take 30 minutes. Or for those of you who like to use my beer timer, you're looking at a 1 beer cook. Now before the hate mail starts up again, not all cooks can be 10 beer cooks. Or can they? The cornbread has been baking away for 30 minutes, so we need to check to see if it's done. How we can do this is by grabbing a wooden skewer or a toothpick and stabbing it into the center of the cornbread. Or just poke it in gently. And if it comes out clean, you have mastered cornbread 101. Or if your skewer comes out with dough on it, kick your Weber over and start again. Or pop the lid back on, give it another 5 minutes and test it again. Now the cornbread's ready to remove from the Weber, and surely I don't need to tell you that pan's going to be hot. So wear some heat-proof gloves. Now using a butter knife, we're just going to loosen up the edges and then get it out of the pan and onto a cooling rack, and we'll give that about 10 minutes to cool down. And now that it's cooled down a bit, we can slice it up. Now you can put butter on it or maple syrup. I prefer it on its own. Either way, it's that good it's illegal. As always, cheers for watching. And finally, we're finishing off with a barbecue favourite, Mexican street corn, also known as elotes. This smoky, creamy, cheesy and slightly spicy corn is next level good. It's the perfect balance of flavours, and I'll show you exactly how they make it on the streets of Mexico. And then a few wedges of lime to squeeze over and add some zing. And you're going to want to try this one as soon as possible. How friggin' good does that look? Now, if you aren't shoving this in your cornhole, that should be illegal. Oh, slut! Let's get into it. Today, we're gonna make Mexican street corn. Elotes. Now, cooking time for this recipe will be 18 minutes. Or for those of you who follow my beer timer, you're looking at a 1 beer cook. Cheers. By liking this video and giving it a thumbs up, you're actually showing your support. To make this recipe, we're going to need some corn. Not canned corn, not candy corn, but we want sweet corn still in the husk. That's it. Ta-da! I mean, you can juggle them if it makes you feel like you've done something. Look, I know this isn't meat. It's called a vegetable. Say it with me, vegetable. To make an authentic Mexican street corn, elotes. You'll need to hunt down some specific items or substitute them for the next best thing like I have. Into a non-reactive bowl, you're going to need to add a 1/4 cup of crema Mexican agria or sour cream like me, a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, I'm not going to pronounce this right, but 1/2 cup of cotija cheese that has been crumbled, or feta like me, 2 cloves of minced garlic, the zest from 1 lime, the juice from 1 lime, a 1/4 cup of coriander. I get it, you hate coriander. Use parsley instead and stop going on about it. No one cares. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt flakes. Mix this up thoroughly and then scoop it into a tray. And then pop this aside for later. The reason for the non-reactive bowl is the citrus in the lime juice. This can react and change flavour if you use a metal bowl. So use a glass bowl, a ceramic bowl, or a plastic bowl. Sharing this video is the biggest form of flattery. Today, I'm going to be using my Weber Go Anywhere, or GA as they're known, because I want to be grilling over a direct heat today. Now to start, I can remove the lid, we won't be needing that today, and take the grill out. And I'm going to open up those bowl vents. This is going to allow as much airflow to our fuel as possible. And then I'll 3/4 fill a chimney starter up with lumped charcoal. Light it up. Once it's all ashed over, I'll dump that into the GA. Then using an old pair of tongs, I'll spread the charcoal out so I get even heat throughout the entire GA. Carefully place the grill back in. I'll put the proper grill on and I'll let that warm up for 5 minutes. Using charcoal to cook with is going to give us a more authentic flavour. Once that grill has had 5 minutes to warm up, we can place the corn over the heat, keeping the husk on. By keeping the husk on for this part of the cook, the corn will steam away and the end result will be a more tender piece of corn. Now using heat-proof gloves, we just want to keep turning the corn over and we're going to give it about 10 minutes over direct heat. After 10 minutes, we can take the corn off the grill and we can start to pull back the husk and the silk. The husk is these outer leaves and the silk is this inner stringy stuff. Now leave the husk on to act as a handle for later on, and if you want you can use a couple of leaves of the husk just to tie around all the others, just to hold them in place, and it makes it a little neater when grilling. If you can't find corn on the cob with the husk still on, wrap yours up in some flexible metal to achieve a similar result. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, I can't look at you anymore. It's time to add some charring to this soon-to-be Mexican street corn. Elotes! Give them a spray with some cooking oil, turn them all over, and spray the other side. And place them back over the grill. Just keep turning them so they don't burn. Now we do want to see a lot of charring on these, and that is going to take around about 8 minutes to achieve. And once you are happy with the colour of the corn, remove it from the grill. Comment below and tell me what your favourite barbecue side dish is. Now roll each corner of the cob in that sauce, and you're going to use a basting brush just to help cover it properly. And once covered, lay them out on a plate or a platter. Then we're going to sprinkle them with more of that crumbled up feta cheese, plus some finely chopped coriander. If you don't like coriander, use parsley. Stop whinging about it. No one cares. And a sprinkling of chili powder. And then a few wedges of lime to squeeze over and add some zing. I think they should have made more of these Mexican corn treats. Full of flavour and so moist. Smut! And there you have it. 5 must-try barbecue side dishes that'll take your next barbecue to the next level. Which one are you making first? Drop a comment below. And if you love barbecue content like this, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any new recipes. See you next time and happy grilling.